Welcome to lecture 40 of electric power system. We were discussing the power system fault, and here we are going to discuss the analysis of symmetrical fault. In the introduction part, we have discussed that symmetrical fault can be analyzed using the Thevenin's theorem or using the Z-bus matrix. So let us look into the analysis of symmetrical fault in detail. So we'll calculate the fault current using impedance diagram. So if we have any single line diagram of a power system, then from there we can draw the impedance or the reactance diagram. So we will draw the impedance diagram of a single line diagram. So consider the single line diagram of a power system where a generator is supplying a motor load through a transmission line. So here we have a generator which is supplying a motor through a transmission line, and you have a transformer connected at the both end. The rating of the devices are given against the component. So synchronous generator is supplying a synchronous motor. Motor is operating at a rated voltage and rated MVA while drawing a load current at a power factor of 0.9 lagging. So the information of the motor is given that it is drawing a load current whose power factor is 0.9 lagging. If a three-phase symmetrical short circuit occur at the terminal of the motor, then you have to calculate the fault current that flow from both the generator and the motor. So we will use two techniques. So the first technique, first we will convert all the ratings into the base per unit system using the base values. So choose a base of 50 MVA and 20 kV in the circuit of the generator. So the power and the voltage rating of the generator is chosen as the base value, and then we convert all the system into the per unit system. So all the components, so here we are converting the motor synchronous reactance in per unit. Now, since the transmission line is connected with a transformer, there will be a change of the level of the voltage on the secondary side because of this transformer. So we have to obtain the new Z base because of this transformer. What is the new Z base? And then we can obtain the per unit reactance of the transmission line. So these base value, whatever we are using 20 kV for the generator, we can't use for the transmission line because due to transformer the base value will change. Now we have obtained the reactance diagram or the impedance diagram we have obtained. Now here we have a generator whose reactance is given in per unit, and we have a transformer, we have transmission line, and then we have a transformer, and this is all about the motor. Since a fault is being shown by a switch connected at the motor terminal. So in this impedance diagram, a switch S is indicating the fault. So closing of the switch will indicate a fault in the system. Now the motor will draw a load current at rated voltage and rated MVA with 0.9 lagging power factor. This is given in the question that if the motor is drawing a load current at rated voltage and rated MVA at 0.9 power factor lagging, then what is the load current we have? So considering it to be 1 per unit, so minus of cos angle of 0.9. Minus indicates for the lagging power factor and it is a 0.9. Now the subtransient voltage of the motor and the generator we have to calculate. So what is the subtransient condition of the motor? So subtransient condition of the motor will be equal to 1 per unit minus the drop whatever we have in this reactance multiplied with the load current. Whereas in the generator side we will have a plus case for 1 per unit because 1 is the load current. Now, after obtaining the subtransient condition, we can obtain the fault current for both the motor and the generator. We have seen in the previous lecture that whenever there is a transient in any generator or any alternator, then there are cases for subtransient, transient, and the steady state. and here the subtransient fault current is being calculated as the ratio of the subtransient voltage divided by the reactance. So here when we are using a motor, we'll take the motor reactance. Whenever we are using a generator, we are taking the generator reactance, and we are calculating the fault current for both the motor and the generator. Then the total fault current will be coming from the generator end and one from the motor end. So the fault current will be the sum of the generator current and the motor current subtransient fault current. Now this is in per unit, so obviously it has to be converted into the actual quantity. So the base current we have to obtain. So once we have obtained the base current from the base power and the base voltage, we can obtain the base current, and this base current we can multiply it with the per unit system to obtain the actual current. Therefore, when the load current is 1603.8 ampere, the fault current is coming to be 7124.7 ampere. So we can see that the level of the current during the fault condition has increased tremendously. Now there is a second technique that we can use. So let us see the second technique. So we can obtain a Thevenin's circuit of the original impedance diagram. So the Thevenin's impedance at the circuit between terminals A and B, what is the Thevenin impedance? So that we are going to obtain. So after obtaining the Thevenin's impedance, we can obtain the fault current, that is subtransient fault current, as the voltage which is equal to 1 per unit divided by the Thevenin's impedance that we have calculated. So this comes to be again the same whatever we have obtained. Now it can be divided into the motor part and the generator part. So using the parallel rule, we can, if you have a current division rule, we can apply to find out the motor current and the generator current pre-fault current. Now, if we have obtained that, then we can obtain what is the motor current and the generator fault current. So that will be equal to the current that we have calculated here minus the load current, and here we have to do the plus load current. So these two cases we can use to find the fault current supplied by the motor and the generator, and this is being calculated with the help of current division rule. Now we can use a second method to calculate the fault current, which is depending upon the Z bus matrix. So let us consider one example where you have basically 4 buses. So V1, V2, V3 and V4 indicates the 4 bus, and there is a symmetrical fault at bus number 4. So if and 0 is being indicated the reference bus, and all the impedances are given to us. So if there is a fault, there is a symmetrical fault in bus number 4, what will happen? So assume a symmetrical fault that has occurred in bus number 4, such it is now connected to the reference bus. So if a 3-phase fault has occurred, now it will be connected with the help to the reference bus. Then let the pre-fault voltage at this bus is Vf. So if we consider the pre-fault voltage as Vf, then to denote that bus B4 is short circuited, we add two voltage source, one is Vf, another is minus Vf together in series between bus 4 and the reference bus. So here we can see that two voltages Vf, that is the pre-fault voltages, are added. This together sum will make to be 0. That indicates that fourth bus is being short circuited with respect to the ground or the reference bus. Note that the subtransient fault current I have double dash flows from bus 4 to the reference bus. This implies that a current equal to minus sign of the fault current is injected into the bus 4. We have changed the direction of the current from the original direction obtained. This current, which is due to the source minus Vf, will flow through the various branches of the network and will cause a change in the bus voltages. So whatever the voltages we have, V1 to V4 will change due to there is a fault, which is the Vf. Assuming that the two sources and VF are short circuited, then minus VF is the only source left in the network that injects a current minus IF double dash into the bus number 4. So there is only one source, and that is equal to minus VF, which is injecting a current minus IF. So the voltage at different nodes that are caused by the voltage minus VF and the current minus F dash can be related with the help of the relationship as V is equal to I into Z. We know that this relationship we can use to find the change in the voltage. So delta V1, delta V2 and delta V3 are the voltages of the three buses, and V minus VF is indicating the pre-fault voltages of the bus number 4. Z bus we have to obtain for the entire system, and all the current at the different buses 1, 2 and 3 will be 0, whereas the fourth bus the current injecting is minus of IF double dash. So here delta indicates the change in the bus voltage due to the fault current. Now from this matrix equation we can obtain that the fault voltage, pre-fault voltage is equal to Z44 into IF double dash. So we can see that here we are using Z44. The meaning is that if we are having a Z bus matrix, then since it is a 4 bus matrix, so we have a 4 cross 4 element, so Z44 is here. Now if we have a 3 bus matrix, then it will be equal to Z33 into fault current, because the fault has taken place at bus number 4. So delta Vi for any other buses 1, 2 and 3 can be obtained by minus of Zi4, where I indicate the bus to which we are calculating an IF double dash. So it is equal to minus of Zi4 in by Z44 into Vf, where I is equal to 1, 2 and 3. We further assume that the system is unloaded before the fault occur and that the magnitude and phase angle of the generator internal EMFs are the same. Then there will be no current circulating anywhere in the network, and the bus voltage of all the nodes before the fault will be same and equal to Vf. Now the system is under the unloaded condition before the fault. Hence the magnitude and phase angle of all the generator internal EMFs are same. So there will be no circulating current. Now the new altered bus voltage due to the fault will be, so any voltage of any of the buses Vi now is equal to Vf, that is the pre-fault voltage, plus delta Vi, that is the change in the voltage of a particular bus, which we can obtain from this formula for bus number 1 to 4. Now the next topic that we are going to take is selection of circuit breaker. So let us see how the circuit breaker operates. So suppose at this instant of time there is an initiation of fault. Then the circuit breaker will take some amount of time to give a signal, which is the tripping delay. After which the circuit breaker will open at this point and it will be energized after the tripping delay, and it will take some time to open. So here the circuit breaker has opened. So the total time from the fault initiation to the opening time is known as contact partitioning time. From this point, which is the circuit breaker operating, opening or partitioning, till where the arc has been extinguished, this time is known as arcing time. So opening time and plus arcing time is known as the interrupting time of the circuit breaker. Now, whenever there is a fault occur, the protective device has to get activated. So protective device here indicates the relays and the circuit breaker. So certain amount of time will elapse before the protective delays determine that there is a overcurrent in the circuit and initiated trip command, that is the detection time or the tripping time. The contact of the circuit breaker are held together by spring mechanism, and with the trip command the spring mechanism release the contact. When two current carrying contact part, a voltage instantly appears at the contact and a large voltage gradient appear in the medium between the two contacts. So this is the operation of the circuit breaker. So due to which the voltage gradient has occurred. Now the voltage gradient will ionize the medium, thereby maintaining the flow of current. The current generates extreme heat and light, which is called as electric arc. So due to the fault current, which is the opening of the circuit breaker, there will be enormous amount of heat and light, which is known as the electric arc. Different mechanisms are used for elongating the arc, such as can be cooled or extinguished. So different type of circuit breakers are there. It can be air circuit breaker or SF6 circuit breaker. So that is being used to quench the arc. Therefore, the circuit breaker has to withstand the fault current from the instant of initiation of the fault to the time the arc is extinguished. So we have seen from the graph that the total time elapsed, the instant from which the circuit breaker has opened to the time where the circuit breaker has extinguished the fault, that is the total operating time of the circuit breaker. Now, important factors for the selection of circuit breakers are the maximum instantaneous current that the breaker must withstand. So what is the maximum current that a particular type of breaker can withstand? The total current when the breaker contact part. So in this chapter, we have discussed the symmetrical subtransient fault current in a network. However, the instantaneous current flowing a fault will also contain a DC component which we have neglected, and only the AC component we have considered. In a high power circuit breaker selection, the sub-transient current is multiplied by a factor of 1.6. So we are taking a factor of 1.6, which has to be multiplied with the sub-transient current to determine the RMS value of the current that circuit breaker must withstand. So in order to design a circuit breaker, we have to multiply the power rating of a circuit breaker by 1.6 from the sub-transient current. That will be the current the circuit breaker can withstand. This current is called the momentary current. This is the momentary current to which a circuit breaker can withstand. The interrupting current of a circuit breaker is lower than the momentary current and will depend upon the speed with which the circuit breaker operates. The interrupting current may be asymmetrical since some DC component will still continue to decay. Breakers are usually classified by their nominal voltage, continuous current rating, rated maximum voltage, K factor, which is the voltage range factor, rated short circuit current at maximum voltage, and the operating time. So these are basically the characteristic which with the breaker are classified. What is the nominal voltage? What is the continuous current rating? Rated maximum voltage? What is the K factor, which is the voltage range factor? Rated short circuit current at maximum voltage, and the operating time. K factor, which is the ratio of rated maximum voltage to the lower limit of the range of the operating voltage. The maximum symmetrical interrupting current of a circuit breaker is given by K times the rated short circuit current. So the factor K is important because we have to multiply this K factor with the rated short circuit current to obtain the maximum symmetrical interrupting current. Now we have obtained the current. So if we are trying to obtain the MVA rating of the short circuit interrupting rating, then estimated from the knowledge of pre-fault voltage and short circuit interrupting current. So we require a voltage rating and current rating to obtain the MVA rating, and that are the pre-fault voltages. So the equation for short circuit interrupting MVA is root 3 times the voltage, which is the voltage of magnitude of pre-fault line voltage, because L indicates line because we are using root 3 here. So here we'll take the line voltage pre-fault at the fault point in kilovolt. And here the current whatever we are taking, that is the line value of short circuit interrupting current at the fault in kiloampere. So voltage we are taking in kV and current we are taking in kiloampere, then we get a power rating in MVA. This is the actual value. If we have given the MVA in base, then we have to multiply this in per unit system. And we know that in the per unit system, there is no root 3 term. So only the voltage and the current in per unit is there, which is the pre-fault voltage and short circuit interrupting current, which is multiplied with the base to obtain the same short circuit interrupting MVA. Now, these calculations are pertaining to the faults. If we are trying to obtain the MVA under the normal working condition, then instead of fault voltage and fault current, we'll take the normal voltage and normal current. So in this way, we have completed the symmetrical fault analysis, and in the next class onwards, we are going to see the unsymmetrical fault analysis. So symmetrical fault analysis is basically the 3 line to ground fault, whereas unsymmetrical fault analysis will involve the either the line to ground or line to line or double line to ground fault. Thank you.